And there it is. Travel to Whispering Pines. Let's go. This is so much better. Hey guys, how's it going? It is Kire here with another Diablo 4 video. And in today's video, we got an exciting one here. The patch notes are finally live. It was speculated that this was going to come through here on this maintenance. I'm glad that it's actually confirmed and official and live in game. So there's a lot of things here. They really don't lead with the best parts. When I first saw these patch notes, I saw bug fixes and gameplay fixes that I figured that was it. And then local co-op, then quest issues, then UI, then you have to go all the way down here. Here's the actual good stuff. So we have gameplay adjustments. Significantly increased the experience awarded for completing nightmare dungeons. Significantly increased the experience gained from killing monsters in nightmare dungeons. Helltide chests now provide substantially more bonus experience when opened. All of these are massive W's in my opinion, and much needed for the game to be played as intended instead of going into a random dungeon with 4 people and spamming it and skipping this until you're already 100. Now you could actually play the game as intended, do the Helltides and get a ton of XP, play the Nightmare Dungeons and get a ton of XP. I think this is way better. We'll have to see what significantly is, but I'm assuming it's going to be pretty good. Significantly increased rewarded experience from completing individual whispers across the board. This is massive too. There was a guy that did a video where he opened 50 of these and they're basically worthless. Increased rewarded experience for completing these is massive. And then fixed an issue where no experience was awarded for completing the holdout style. So this is just a bug. Those things are great. All massive W's when it comes to experience. I think that's been a big issue in the game. Another massive one we just guaranteed in the beginning of the video here. Our players can now teleport to their nightmare dungeon directly through the map. Very nice quality of life feature. It feels discouraging to play as intended, which is going through multiple dungeons where you're constantly having to walk to the next dungeon. Need to address, I think, the bigger problem, which is they need to have better incentives to walk around the map, and then we hit those things on the way to the dungeon. Bittersweet in my opinion, because I feel like this is a nice change and a temporary band-aid fix, but this is, in the grand scheme of things, I think this is the lazier solution. And then we have Helltide roaming buses will now more consistently drop higher quality loot. This is how you can make up for the lack of potential experience or other rewards, is by making this a higher chance to drop higher quality. I think that's a good change. And then the weekly bonus caches from world bosses no longer have a level requirement for opening. Shouldn't have been in the game in the first place, but I'm glad that they are addressing this. So the developers note here, we are currently working on increasing the monster and elite density of in-game content and plan to introduce this change early in Season 1. Okay, I'm glad that they addressed this and they have a plan to actually make this change. I think that's going to be a really good change going forward, whether it be the increased experience, but the game is more fun when there's more monsters on the screen. Potentially even more challenging. I think it's just overall a net positive to have a change like that. And then I'm glad it's not taking like the gym tab increase where it's going to be until Season 2. Early Season 1 is totally reasonable. I guess you could also argue it took a hotfix for them to remove elites, but why can't they add more density? Curious to hear what you guys think about that. And then we have balance changes. So for all classes, I could really only speak to the barbarian side of these changes, but let's talk about the developer's note first. We're continuing our efforts to make all class builds feel fun and powerful, and another round of balance updates. In particular, we have seen community feedback stating that basic skills aren't impactful enough in combat. These changes will not change the fundamental relationship between basic skills and core skills, but we hope that they help smooth out the leveling experience while we explore additional ways to strengthen them. We are also increasing the power of some skills that players feel are lagging behind their peers. As we look forward to future updates, we're monitoring other heavily discussed topics such as minion survivability and build parity. Please keep sending us feedback and we'll see you in Sanctuary. Okay, let's see what they did with the Barbarian. Okay, so base damage increased. 3% change in the Fury generated goes up from 9 to 10. This is a pretty popular move as a generator and a way to proc berserking for Barbarians. Having a net positive buff here is nice. It's also refreshing to see actual buffs instead of constant nerfs. This is good to see. And then we have Bash here generated. The Fury generated increased from 10 to 11, and then enhanced Bash's Fortify increased from 10% to 20%. Kind of interesting. I don't really think Fortify generation is an issue for Barbarians, so I don't know if this is actually going to be impactful, but potentially could be. And we have Frenzy, base damage increased from 20 to 22%. All these are pretty negligible in my opinion. These all might make the leveling experience better. I'm not sure. So far, not seeing anything too crazy here. And then for Fly, bleeding damage base increased from 36 to 40. Fury increased it from 9 to 10, and enhanced vulnerable chance from 10 to 15. For Barbarian, being able to consistently proc vulnerable is a problem. Obviously they have the way to guarantee it for 3 seconds, but if you're facing someone tanky, after that 3 seconds, it's gone and it's very difficult to generate unless you have a ton of lucky hit chance and you have specific talent trees. Double swing, Base damage increased from 36 to 40. Kick, the cooldown reduced from 17 to 13. I think that's really nice. Being able to introduce and potentially make these skills that are not being used as much as a barbarian appealing is very good. So having a buff to the cooldown reduction there is going to be really good. And then the base damage dealt to enemies knocked back into terrain increased from 54 to 70. I think that's a massive buff that is well needed. Even though I did see a really cool build using this, but I'm glad that they are buffing these things that are just not being used, period, by barbarians for the majority of the player base. It's basically all Whirlwind and Hoda. And we have Charge, Enhanced Charge, base damage dealt to enemies knocked back to terrain from 15 to 30. Leap here, Mighty Leap Slow increased from 50 to 70%. Iron Skin, I like this, even though this is a move that I would say is pretty used by barbarians. The Iron Skin barrier increased from 10% to 20% of max life. Call of the Ancients, Prime Call of the Ancients, bonus attack speed increased from 10 to 20. A nice little buff there. The Iron Maelstrom buffs are a little better when it comes to cooldown reduce. When it comes to ultimates, I think they either need to make them on their own separate abilities, so you always have an ultimate at least, or do something like this where they're reducing the cooldown from 60 to 45. I think that's a great change. Prime Iron Maelstrom bonus critical strike chance increased from 10 to 30, and then Prime Iron Maelstrom bonus critical strike damage from 20 to 40. So massive buffs there. Bounding Slam is also a massive increase as well. And then they also did adjustments to the flat damage of all of the legendary aspects, which I think is really good as well. Can't really speak to these ones here, but feel free to check the links down below in the pinned comment and also in the description. I will post both of these so you could actually read this for yourself here based on your class. Basically, all I know is the barbarian class, so that's all I'm really going to speak to. Curious to hear you guys' thoughts down below. And with that, guys, I'm out of here. Peace.